Hey, this is Ky Logue, and you're listening to the Real Estate Wholesaling Syndicate. I designed this podcast to get you real, actionable information that you can apply directly into your wholesaling business. There's no fluff, no bullshit, just real advice and real strategies from the best investors and wholesalers in the game. So, hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning into the podcast. Appreciate you guys. Today, super excited to have our guest share with us and drop some knowledge on us. We got McKlane Bobbitt. McKlane, thank you so much for joining today, man.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on here.
Of course, man. I'm looking forward to this one. So, yeah, for people who don't know you, do you want to give us a quick intro?
Yeah. So obviously my name is McKlane Bobbitt. I'm actually based out of Northeast Texas, Greenville, Texas to be exact. My background actually came from software sales and medical device sales, and took pursuit on the entrepreneur journey probably right at 3.5 years ago. And right now we've got a fix and flip team, real estate acquisitions, wholesale, but really we're known for our messy title deals. So curative title, multiple heirs. If you're having to chase down someone that's hasn't been seen in decades, that's kind of our deals we love to go after.
I love it, man. Yeah, I definitely want to get into that because, yeah, we've had some nightmare title deals. So I'd love to hear some solutions for that. I'm sure the audience would as well. But before we get into that, let's kind of just start with your story. I know you mentioned, how did you get started? You said you were in medical device sales before you made the jump.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll kind of paint the picture in here is I graduated college in December of 2017. I was like, you know what, I'm getting married. I'm going to go work a corporate job. Of course, obviously everyone's like, hey, you'll get a good job, get good grades. And I had the hardest time finding a job, and I started working in medical device sales after months and months of research and like finally getting a job. And this medical device job, it was end of life product. So for a lot of times I was talking to customers and I was like, hey, what's your dream? Like, what's your dream picture? And a lot of these people were 70, 80 years old, and they were like, I wish I could go to the grocery store for like 20 minutes without having to worry about my oxygen tank running out, or I wish I could go see my cousin or sister, whatever it might be. And I began to like have this certain inflection on myself. I was like, I've got my degree, just got married, no college debt. I'm working this job. Okay, there's got to be like something bigger in life than this.
Mm.
And I'd always had like the entrepreneur bug, but I never took that leap of faith. And of course, you start looking during your break times. You're like, how to make $10,000 in a month, and you stumble on wholesaling. So this is like late 2018. I was digging around doing bigger pockets. Like, oh man, this can't be real. And started doing the research, which I'm sure you know is you start getting that idea in your head and you start working towards, and you're like, what do I need to go from A to B?
Mm.
And I started door knocking. I was driving 2 hours a day for work and then working 8 hours. And I was door knocking, doing DoorDash to make it for market money because I was just newly married. Like, I didn't have a lot of money. And I started door knocking every weekend. My wife was like, what are you doing? Like, what is the vision you see? And of course, like she'll tell you, like, she was always on board for me leaving my corporate job. But I closed my first wholesale deal in July of 2019, and I literally went from the belief land to, hey, this is actual real stuff.
Mm.
Um, Pretty much from there, I started knocking down deals, and I was like, look, we've got something going here. And I was getting ready to leave my job. I got ready to add consistency, and I said, you know what, it's time to leave my job. And if anybody's ever listening to me and they're like, he took a leap of faith. No, no, no. I planned this out before I took that leap. But I left my corporate job in software sales May of 2020, a week before Dallas declared shelter in place. And that's pretty much where the journey just took off from there.
Man, that's crazy, man. So
Yeah.
what was so just backpedaling for a second, I feel like a lot of people kind of struggle with that. You only have so much time in the day, and it's hard working the job, especially if you're driving 2 hours too. How did you balance that? How did you make it work, I guess, when you're still working that job?
Uh Very disciplined. So if anyone knows my wife or is like understands, hey, obviously your spouse has a lot of stuff to do, but it was very disciplined. Like my wife, she'll tell you, hey, he did not watch movies, we didn't watch TV together. Like I would wake up at 6, go to work, drive to work, be there 7:30, 8 o'clock, work from 8 to 5, and then from 5 to 7 door knock, driving for dollars, um studying. And then by the time I got home, it's 8, 9 o'clock. So it was very intentional with my time. And if you're trying to build a business or you're trying to get into real estate, that's what it takes.
Mm.
So what was that conversation like with your wife? And I said she was supportive, but how was it like, I'm sure you guys had some tough conversations during that time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's always the hardest part, is those conversations you don't want to have. So whenever I first got started, it was hey, I've got this idea. There's something where I can make 10,000 in a month. Um, I need to pay for mentorship, or hey, I need to do this kind of training, or it's a Zoom call. And at first, I'd say the first 2, 3 months, my wife was like, what are you doing? Like, why don't you just go work more hours? And eventually she started warming up to it. And we'd go on like a dinner date, or we'd be driving somewhere, and I'd start playing those podcasts and go, hey, like, here's this guy, he left his job, here's this. And slowly I was able to indoctrinate her and go, okay, here's the vision. Like, look, I'm going to go do this. And she was pretty supportive. She actually wanted me to quit my job like as soon as that first deal was done. And obviously I'm more the conservative person in the relationship, so she was like, jump, do it. Like, I know you just made like $3,500, but go.
That's awesome, man. I think that's so important, just making sure you get on the same page with your spouse and people around you, just so it's like, they don't feel left out. Like they know what's going on. They know when you paint that end picture, it's just so much easier being like, I don't know why this guy doesn't want to spend time with me. So I feel like a lot of people do it the wrong way, and obviously it comes real hard, when you're doing it on your own and people know what you're doing.
Yes.
Like that. But yeah, man. So going back, so you're doing so you're in it. Yeah, you make the quit. You make the jump, and then shelter in place order. So take us through what happens after that.
Yeah. So, I mean, no one knew what was going to go on. Obviously 2020 COVID was a different time, different thing. I had a lot of fear. It was, hey, I just left my job. Yes, I'd done consistent deals, and I had enough runway, had enough cushion, which if anyone's ever thinking about, hey, what kind of runway you have, or kind of reserves, like that's your number one thing, especially whenever you're being told, hey, it's a pandemic. Um, so May 2020, left my corporate job. The next month I made my annual salary, and I had to pivot, just like all of us had to pivot during COVID. Was you went from in-person appointments to, hey, you are having to close over the phone, and you might not walk that house until after you close, or the day of closing, because now the seller's out, or hey, now we can actually get into it. But overnight I had to change my business, and mind you, I'd probably trained up for like 8 months. This is our model, this is how we're going to do it. And within a week I had to flip it entirely. 2020 was fun. We went and flipped our first house, went on to do about 40 deals of wholesale deals that year. And I'll tell you this, that first year, whenever I left, I had like the ups and the really good highs. Like, hey, I made my annual salary for my corporate job. And then it was like Q3, Q4, you go, it's like the darkness settles in, where you're like, okay, this is reality. Like, the hardest thing that first year, whenever I left corporate, is getting my ass up out of bed, because no one's going to tell you, hey, you need to be up at 8 o'clock, or hey, you need to be on time for this stuff, or like, there's no management. It's literally, you are whipping yourself into shape in time, getting your stuff organized. So 2020, my first full year in real estate, was really getting my stuff organized so I can be a better operator.
Mm. Yeah, I love that, man. No, it's such a great point because I feel like when you're an entrepreneur, everyone's like, "Oh, it must be so nice. You get to make your own schedule. It must be so nice, doing this." And you can like, what do you mean you have to work? You make your
Yes.
schedule. You're the boss. Like, what are you talking about? Why can't you do this event or that? But it's yeah, man. It's like it's definitely like rude awakening or big shock. Like, when you're in it and you realize like, fuck, man, it's up to me.
Yeah, 100%. No one's coming to rescue you. That's normally what I tell my guys.
Mm-hmm. 100%. I love that saying, man. So what? So you're there. So you kind of 2020. You kind of get it all, figured out, and you have to build a foundation. It seems like. What happened after that?
Yeah. So 2020, like I said, it was more of the, hey, where's our footing? Let's get the foundations. And then 2021, it was, hey, where's the most use of our time? Where's our best efficiency? And so for me, obviously you look at your annual KPIs and you're like, hey, where do I make my most money? What is a emotional sucker? What takes my energy? And what I found out is, for 2021, we just focused on the messy title stuff. Like, hey, multiple heirs, deceased owners, and I'm in Texas, obviously, but with the Texas flag in the background. But I realized I had a very particular niche in that, and it was something that obviously I loved based on my background in I was pre-med in college. I have the biology background, and I loved going into the deals, looking for people like private investigator type work, doing deep dives. And I realized, hey, those were our highest margins. We had almost excellent KPIs on it compared to the industry average where you might have to call 150, 200 people just to get one lead. And we got really good at those deals in 2021, to the point like that was 95% of our business was just messy title work. And really, we just capitalized on that. We're getting stuff 20, 30 cents on the dollar. And we spent all of 2021 just focused on messy titles.
That's crazy. So were you guys specifically trying to target those deals, or how did it make the transition that you guys are doing mostly?
Yeah, so that's a good point. So whenever we realized these deals from 2020, we kind of stumbled on them, and it was more or less of, hey, I don't know how we get these deals, but they're pretty similar. And I'll tell you, they were tax delinquent code violations, and it was normally widows.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't really have a set way we found it. It was like, hey, we're hitting a tax delinquent list. It just so happened to be this one was our most profitable, and we backtracked it. And then we actually use REI Sift. It's a data stacking and management for data management. And we really dialed in our stuff, and we were like, okay, what's our ideal seller? What's our type of deals? And we plugged them all together. And so we were able to be really efficient with it, taking sniper shots where it's like, hey, I only want to target these 1,500 people. I know we have 20,000 on this list. I'm only going to target these 1,500. And these are our high value targets we're going to hit. That's it.
Mm.
And so with REI Sift, we were able to really dial in our efforts and go, not going to waste our time here. Let's do this.
I like that, man. That's great. So what are some examples, so for people who might not know or might just be getting into the game, what are some other examples? And they kind of mentioned multiple heirs. Like, what are some other examples like messy title deals that you've done?
Yeah. So I'll kind of go down the list where it is. So obviously here in Texas, we have different regulations compared to other states. So like, for example, for any viewers that are in other states, check your laws. Texas, we can do affidavit heirships. We can do probates. If there's like a trust, you can go that route. But most of the deals that we see in messy title, it's either like someone filed a quitclaim deed back in 1985. You might have someone that had misspelled names. You could have someone that lives in a different country and you're having to find them. Really, our most common messy title issues is you might have, for example, let's say there's 6 siblings and they inherited the property or mom passed away, and come to find out the long lost uncle from 15 years ago they've never met is on title because he was the first one to get the property. So we might have to go find that lost uncle that no one's seen in a couple decades. And it might mean bringing on a private investigator or doing some really investigative type work.
That's crazy. So how do you determine, I guess, if the deal's worth it? Is it like was solely based on the spread, or is it like this looks like it's way too much work? Is there ever like a cutoff point? Like, I'm gonna pass on that one.
Yeah. So that's a really great question. I have to sit down with people and go, okay, what's your bandwidth? And then how far are you willing to go for a deal? Because obviously, like, there's deals where we pass up and it might be, let's say the property's worth $80,000, but the amount of work we might make $1,500. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes with the experience and knowing the legalities of, hey, am I going to have to go through probate for this half of the estate, or am I going to have to go chase down 6 heirs? And really what we do is we try and analyze it based on our previous experience. So like for us, what we do is if it's like 1 or 2 heirs or 1 or 2 relatives, we look at it and we're like, okay, based on what we've done before, this will take us about 60 days to do. Obviously, if everyone's cooperating,
mm-hmm.
That's the biggest thing. But if we have something where it's like, hey, we got 1 probate that we need to do, there's 8 heirs, and there's fines in the amount of 80% of what the property's worth. Okay, probably not worth the squeeze on that one. So that's how we determine it, is we have our checklist of, okay, historically, this is what has happened. But if there's a new viewer, if someone's trying to get into messy title work, obviously you've got to look at it is, are you willing to wait 6 months or 5 months for a deal that you might make 30 grand on it, but you're going to do a lot of work for it. Again, you got to look at it and go, is it worth my time to go digging this?
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So how did you learn like to solve these problems? I think a lot of title companies, people just want to avoid this and not deal with it.
Yeah. So it's funny story on that is I got into those types of deals in 2020 and late 2019. I was getting ready to leave my corporate job, and our attorney, we actually have a really good relationship with him now. He had a deal of mine, and it was supposed to be like $7,500, and I had like 2 or 3 deals like this where it was good size assignment fees. It was very easy conversations with sellers. It was amazing. Like they already knew there was issues. I just had to figure out the title problems. And of course, most investors, they toss the title company the contract, say, hey, call me whenever it's ready to close. Well, obviously, title issues, you have to go do some more research. And I remember the attorney, we had the contract for maybe 2 months, and I was getting ready to leave my corporate job. And I said, look, this deal's too good to pass up. What do we need to do? And he called me and said, hey, look, McKlane, we're probably going to have to drop this deal. We can't find this great aunt from 35 years ago, and you're just going to have to let it go. I don't think we can clear title. Well, if you're trying to leave your corporate job and you're a madman out of hell, if you will, I went and cleared title in 18 hours, found the heirs, got them to sign, and mind you, they'd had this contract for almost 2 months. And I got to the point where I asked the underwriter, I said, what made you not want to do this deal? And I went in and I was like, okay, where's your underwriting book? Like, tell me what you would deny a deal on based on these factors. And then what would you do if I remedy it this way? And I got almost feral to the point where they were like, you are the only investor that is actually trying to understand the underwriting process. And really it came down to me being so frustrated that I said, look, I'm not going to let this one deal hold up the other hundreds of deals I might do. So put my nose to the grindstone and learn the process.
I love that, man. That's awesome. So walk us through like your favorite messy deal.
I got a couple, and it'll be some tips and tricks on here, but I'll tell you kind of the sauce on it. So I'll give you like one of my favorite deals. I'd never talked to the seller. It was a tax delinquent code violations, and sorry, it was on a tax delinquent code violations list. Vacant mailing, and obviously there was no property because it's a vacant land. But the owner was 18 years behind on taxes, and most people don't realize on tax delinquent, like you can have a tax foreclosure, but if you get the tax list from your county, it might be 15, 20 years behind on taxes. And this gentleman, he had 5 brothers, and his name was like James. His name was like James C. and their last name. We had 5 brothers with the same first name. So it's like James K, James M, and total backwoods kind of like name in there. And we couldn't find him. None of the neighbors had seen him in almost 20 years. No one knew him. He was a ghost. We had ran like IDI, TLO. No one could find him. And I was like, look, okay, there's got to be some way to get a hold of this guy. And what we did is we found it was one of his brothers owned a like trucking company. We ended up sending him a certified letter thinking it was his brother. And we just sent it literally within like 2 days. We got a text, just a random ass text. And it was the actual brother we were trying to get a hold of. And he was like, hey, I got the letter. Like, what do you need from me? Just text. Like, I'd never got on a phone call with this guy. And he was like, you know what? I'm living in a hotel, like, or motel. I live in my car from time to time. Like, what do you need? And our original message had said, like, hey, this is found money for you. You owe like $43,000 in fines. You owe $20,000 in back taxes. Like, I know you can't handle that, but we can help you with it. And we always pitch our stuff as found money, like we're being a resource for them, coming from a place of help. And he literally texted, like, I still have the text. He was like, whatever you can give me, like, just let me know. And we ended up offering, like, basically he'd walk away for about $500 of property. And we ended up assigning it for $30,000 per lot. And there was 5 lots. And we did the whole transaction without talking to him, without doing anything, except for at the end, we had to talk to his ex-wife that he didn't talk to in almost 18 years. And he didn't want to talk to her. He didn't know how to get a hold of her. We didn't know how to get a hold of her. And so the daughter was like, she will never sign anything for him. Like we don't even know if she will even talk about this. And one of our deals, we were like, let's send her some flowers. Bro, we sent her flowers with the contract like wrapped around it. And she called us, was like, you know what? I really hate her ex. She's like, I really
Yeah.
hate his guts, but I'm just gonna sign just so I can be done with this.
Yeah.
And I was honestly surprised because like you hear guys like Logan Fulmer, Carl Spagova, like those kind of guys, they have to go and pay for their interest, like per other people's interest, which is totally fine.
Hmm.
But like knock on wood, I haven't had to do that. It's normally us having that conversation and stuff like that. But that's one of the more wild deals I've had. Never saw a picture of the seller, never did anything with them.
Did you guys put like a note on the flowers or anything too, or just a
Yeah,
contract?
yeah, we put a note in there, like just a normal one pager, and then had like, hey, here's the stuff from the attorney, here's the notary.
What'd the
Uh,
note say?
so it was just like, hey, hey Susie, hope you enjoy the flowers. We're actually working with your ex-husband. Sorry for anything. So we would put on there like, sorry for anything he'd done for you. Sorry to bring this up. Like we always try and blame ourselves for it
Yeah,
and play
taking
uh
ownership.
kind of scapegoat there.
Yeah.
But she ended up signing. She's like, I don't care what he makes on it. Cause I thought she was gonna want money. And she's like, I don't
Mhm.
care what he makes on it. I just want to be done with it. I thought we were done with everything. Very nice. So it was
Mhm.
awesome on that. But one of the tips that I've got is I'm known for like our pizza method,
Mhm.
and that's more of a advanced technique, if you will. We had a deal up in Ohio as probate, and we had 12 heirs. It's a horrible, horrible deal. And we could not get a hold of one of the heirs. Everyone else on board, no one could get a hold of him. And what we did is we sent a pizza to him. Okay, we didn't have his address. We knew where he kind of lived, and we just did normal skip trace, sent a pizza. I didn't think anything of it. So we sent him a pizza. I called Pizza Hut and I was like, hey, look, I need to get a hold of this guy. I need you to write in the box, hey, call me, number, name, and I need the delivery guy to tell me who picks up the pizza, who opens the door. And we had a whole box, like pizza, chocolate brownies, like soda, everything sent to this house. And delivery guy called me like, hey, this older guy picked it up. Didn't sign off on it. He just was like confused because who gets a pizza in the middle of the evening or like afternoon? And it was cost me like 17 bucks. But hey, this guy was the last guy standing between me and this deal getting done. So 17 bucks to get his attention, totally fine. Well, the next day I got a call, random number, and it was the ex-wife's new husband. He called me. He's like, hey, is this Roland? I was like, no, this is McKlane. Like, I'm trying to get a hold of Roland. And he was mad. I mean, I could hear him yelling in the back, like, shut up, lady. Like, I'm trying to deal with this right now. Well, come to find out, we talked for a few minutes. And come to find out, the new husband thought that the ex-wife was talking to her ex-husband.
Uh,
And so it was getting into a fight. I mean, they were yelling at each other. And I was like, look. I was like, it's fine. I'm trying to get a hold of him because we're doing a deal. And he was finally calmed down. He was like, you know what? I'm sorry. Like, whenever another man comes in another man's territory, like, you got to defend it. I was like, I get that. Well, we hung up. About 30 minutes later, the ex-wife calls and she goes, man, you almost got me killed. And she goes, I am actually talking to my ex-husband.
oh shit.
And she goes, he's actually working in the mines. He's been down there for the last 2 weeks. Here's his number so you can get a hold of him.
Wow.
And so but he did love the pizza. So like we've done crazy stuff like that. Like I've sent a pizza in Australia to go get a hold of someone because it was cheaper than international mail.
Yeah.
Like 17 bucks versus 40 for international mail. But
Yeah.
we do crazy stuff like that to get sellers' attentions.
Yeah. I love how creative that is, man. That's a wild story. That's super fun. So what's like the ratio? Like, 'cause I feel like there's so many moving pieces. You just get one person that's like digs their feet in the ground and just fucks your whole deal up. What's like the percentage do you think that like get to the finish line, or that like is there like a ratio or like a thing, that KPI that you track on that?
Yeah, so we're right at like 91% on our closing rate.
Wow.
So for our stuff, it's 91%. Now, the caveat on that is if you look at the timeline on those deals,
Mhm.
we have deals that might go 2 months, and we have deals that like they've been in escrow for almost 2.5, 3 years now.
Mhm.
And it might be because someone held out, someone died, probate, whatever it might be. Our closing ratio is very high. And obviously there's deals where like we go under contract, it's really well, but then you might find a lien, you're like, we're not touching that. Like we're just gonna wait it out. So there is stuff where we wait it out or the sellers just go, hey, we're gonna quit it or we're not gonna participate on it.
Mhm.
But we do have a very high closing ratio where we go contract to close.
Mhm.
Like I said, it's not pretty on the timeline, but when you get enough deals going, you have enough, you're juggling enough balls in the air that you can go, okay, I know that's a big deal. It's going to hit in 6 months because they're finishing a probate.
Mhm.
Totally fine. I can do that.
That makes sense. Now, is there like how do you keep track of it all? Like, I feel like there's so many different parties and so many different moving pieces, and especially doing multiple deals. Like, how do you keep it all organized and keep all track of it all?
Oh yeah. And so we've been on two different CRMs. So REI Sift uses it's a CRM, data management, all of it. So they built out the timeline so we can keep track of that and build it out where we go, hey, this person, initial contact, we're chasing down other heirs. So we can customize our steps in there.
Mhm.
But if you're not on REI Sift and let's say you have a different software, we were actually using Pipedrive before that and it would show us, hey, here's how many times you've called this person. Here's how long this has been in this deal stage. And if you talk to like, I don't know if you know Casey Smith, Casey Della,
I don't think
um,
so.
she's a huge proponent for transaction coordinating in Texas.
Mhm.
And I remember we were at an event in Dallas and she was like, I think it was like 200 investors in there. And she was like, okay, how many of you track your contract how long it takes your contract to go from contract to close. And I was the only one that raised my hand. And she was like, that's the most critical part, especially whenever you do messy title, is how much time do you spend on those deals? Or how do you keep track of, I sent the contract, the seller's been holding out for 7 days to sign it. Okay, great. But no one tracks between, hey, how long did it take us to get the second signature? Or how long did it take us to get an affidavit airship? But to answer your question, we use Pipedrive in the beginning, and now we use REISIF for managing those timelines and expectations.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I like how you mentioned like the found money. Are there any other like phrases or scripts or things that you use when you talk to people that I feel like it can be tough. Like I don't know, I've had one where all the brother there's only three of them. Like the third one didn't want to do it, and he wanted to do it, the other one didn't do it. Like what kind of conversations are you having with these people to
Yeah.
kind of get them all on the same page?
Oh, and that's one of the hardest part is having that conversation. Again, you got to have those hard questions, but um, typically we cater it to our clientele. Like I told you earlier, tax delinquent code violations is our best two list that we hit for us.
Mhm.
Um, tax delinquent, obviously, if they don't pay the taxes, local government's going to take the property, they'll auction it off. So like one of our phrases for our tax delinquent people, it's, hey, I'd hate for the city to take your property. And they go like, you know what? Like screw the government. Like I don't want them to take it from me.
Yeah.
Or we try and side it where it's hey, it's us against them.
Mhm.
And so we position the phrase as, hey, I'd hate to see it go to auction and the city take your property. Do you want to see if we can help you get something for it? And then another thing we do is we'll tell them like, hey, you know what? You've got this, and this. What if we do it all for you? It's a white glove service, which that's the easy pitch is obviously if it's someone who hasn't dealt with it before. And again, that's our normal clientele is 55 plus, it's a widow. So most times the husband's taking care of the finances, handling everything that's outside of their wheelhouse. And we're able to come in and go, you know what, we're going to walk you through it. We're going to make sure you get this amount. And then here's these steps to get there. And just paint the picture for them. Hey, it's a white glove service. And the local government doesn't take your property. Like, how does that sound?
Yeah, sounds great. I love that. That's awesome, man. So you mentioned it kind of briefly before. What are some of the other ways that you're using? What are the main ways you use to like find these people or get their contact info?
Yeah. So obviously skip trace. So like the way we do it, and it's kind of our standard way is obviously pick your skip tracing service for your bulk skip tracing. Um, run it through a secondary. So like if you have, let's say for us, we use kind skip tracing first for I call it our dollar menu like value meal
Hmm.
because we send like maybe 10,000 records to it. And then we use Skip Genie. And then if we don't have anything from there, we go to TLO, we'll go to IDI. But you will have records where you go through all three providers, you get nothing.
Mm.
And that's when we start digging into obituaries. We go into findagrave.com. We'll go into True People Search. And again, I know people might dog it, but True People Search has gotten me a lot of relatives that did not show up in Skip Genie. TLO, most times I can get the relatives, but it's a resource that I can readily access.
Mm.
But Find a Grave, Ancestry.com, we use that quite a bit. And really, Facebook has been a very good hit for us. Is we're able to obviously show a profile picture, and it's not just a random message on a text. It's, hey, like I've done a deal with, it was a pastor's wife, and she was like, I see your profile picture. You know, you look presentable. Thank you so much for handling this for us. And she literally went down my face where she's like friends with me on Facebook, and she's like, I love every story you have. Like, I wish you could do this for all the old ladies that need the money and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But really, it's being creative. It's thinking outside the box of text message, cold call, and can I door knock? Like, how can you be more personable in that targeted approach?
Mm. And I love to see that persistence too, because I feel like a lot of times people hear their deal's dead, or the lawyer, someone tells them the deal's dead, they're like, "Oh, what am I going to do?" But I love how, especially that story you shared, you're like, "I'm fucking figure it out. That's what I'm going to do."
Yeah, and that's why we get the deal so cheap. Is how many more steps are you willing to go? Because it might be something simple, and most investors are like, we're not going to deal with this.
Mm-hmm. No, it makes sense. Yeah, especially if you just don't know how. But that's great. So, so that's how you're finding them. I had another question, totally blanked on it. So with heir affidavitship, so or affidavit of heirship, I'll say it backward. How do you like? What can you explain what that is, and then like how that different is different from probate?
Yeah. So Texas, we're allowed to do either one. So I'll give examples on it. Affidavit of heirship, think of it as the cheaper route. Hey, it's more of a quick remedy for getting title out of a deceased person's name. Most times there's some stipulations like how much is in the estate. Obviously, if there's heirs that are fighting, we're going to lean towards probate versus affidavit of heirship. But if we have someone that's willing to cooperate with us, we will always push for an affidavit of heirship, as long as the deceased person has been dead for more than 6 months and there's not like $1 million estate. If there's something like sizable, like, hey, they've got a Rolls Royce in the driveway, they got Lamborghini, like probably need to go probate.
Mm-hmm.
It's just settle the whole estate at once. But in Texas, we're allowed to do affidavit airships. It's like $300. You can normally have clear title within 2 weeks. And like I said, the biggest thing is having all of the heirs. So if you have a widow and she has 2 kids or 2 kids from her prior marriage, you're going to have to get everyone on board and go, hey, we're willing to sell at this price for this. We're all going to get our own pieces of the pie. And there's a lot of different regulations on it and different laws. Like there's Texas entity law, and it has a chart. You have a public chart where you can tell you, hey, here's what you're going to need to do. So like we always push for affidavit heirship because most of our deceased people have been dead for 6 or 7 years on average on our KPIs. It's not a sizable estate. And then most times we're able to get everyone on board because it's already either set for tax auction or it's going to tax foreclosure at some point. And these people are pretty much like, we'll do whatever we need to do. And then on the flip side, you have the probate, where obviously probate, it might take 30 days. It might take 2 years. I've seen some take 12 years.
Wow.
And it was stuff from like the 80s and 90s where people tried to do probate and they never got done. But probate is more, I'd say, I wouldn't say outlined. It's more of the kosher way to do an estate. If you're winding it down, if you're closing out the estate, might cost you $3,000, $4,000, might cost you $100,000 plus. Again, it just depends on the individual's needs, what kind of estate they're handling. If it's like, hey, dad had a tractor and he had a $40,000 house, okay, it's going to be pretty easy. Mm-hmm. But if it's Jeff Bezos and you're trying to do probate for him, you might be there for a couple of years.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then, so what has to be done to get the affidavit of heirship? Is it done? Is that something like you gather all the information for it? How much legwork are you doing? How much is the title company doing?
So we try and do this is one thing our title company loves about us is whenever we do the acquisition, so like getting a contract, we're obviously underwriting the deal as we're having that conversation with the seller. So we'll have that conversation and go, okay, like I see you're on title. I see someone else on title. Tell me about them. And they'll go, oh, well, that's my husband. He's deceased. Or, hey, he got the property, from his mom who owned the property before. We'll start working through that, and we'll actually run a preliminary title search. Normally we can get back within 24 hours, and it will show us who's on title. So we will get the questionnaire, the affidavit heirship questionnaire, ahead of time. So if we know anyone is deceased that might be on title or shows up on title, we have a questionnaire from the title company where it's deceased name, any witnesses that knew that person. So it's like family, friends, neighbors, coworkers. We'll get all that information on the front end, and it's a 1-page, sometimes 2-page questionnaire that says, hey, like, tell me about the life of this person that passed away. And we get it ahead of time because most investors, what they do is they get under contract, they wait for the title search. Okay, so you might be 2 weeks in, and then the title company goes, hey, you have these 3 people that are deceased or 2 people that are deceased. Now you got to go digging. So we cut down that timeline by 2 weeks or 3 weeks by getting it on the front end and being able to have it provided. But affidavit heirship, you get the questionnaire, you have 2 witnesses sign on it, and you're done. That's it. Very, very simple.
Right. Now, can that be like contested, or like what happens if like they're being deceitful or something, or if they're like, oh, look, another brother pops up and he wants like his piece or something?
Oh yeah. Okay. So this is why it's good to have title insurance. Yes, you can have it contested. We actually had one, was it October? We did a deal back in 2020, and it was 2 brothers. I'll give you the example, but it was 2 brothers. Their dad had owned the property like outright individually, and they had sold the property and they made their money. They're like, cool, that's great, whatever. So in October, one of the stepbrothers noticed that there was a house being built on this property that he thought that, hey, this was ours. This is the family owns it. I've got my right to it. So he went and made a claim on the property saying, hey, I'm part of the family. This was part of my share. This should be mine. And we did an affidavit heirship for that property. So they went back, and then they had to call the witnesses and go, hey, you signed on this line saying that you confirmed that these are the only 2 siblings in this marriage or in this next of kin, which we ended up winning it because it was a kick out.
Yeah.
But you can have people that come back 2-3 years later and they're like, I want my piece of the pie.
Yeah.
And that's the case. That's the risk you run with an affidavit heirship, but it's the hardest thing to do if someone's lying. So that's why you obviously have the witnesses. You have people that are willing to testify and go, hey, this is what it is. So you can't have that. Obviously with probate, once it's done, it's done. Like, here's who's been appointed. You take care of this. Okay, cool. But as long as you get as much information, and again, it's always disclosing, and I always have the seller sign a disclosure going, hey, I'm not lying to you. This is exactly what I said. I'm being honest. This is all the siblings we have. And having them sign that as well covers us on the liability.
Nice. That makes sense. So like ideally, like all the like siblings are entitled to equal piece, or is it based on the will? But this is all this if there is no will?
So no, yeah. So with affidavit heirship, there's no will. I've done it multiple different ways. I've done it where one sibling gets all the money. I've got it. Most of the times everyone's like wanting their equal split. You might have someone that's like, well, I paid all the taxes the last 4 years. And so we might prorate everyone else's to give that share more money. Really, it comes down to what the family needs. Like if everyone's just, hey, we just want to be done with it, whatever, we'll split it up equally, however it's distributed after the fines, liens, all that stuff's done. But I've had it where like, let's say one sibling takes care of everything, and I've had eight siblings give up their rights to the one oldest sibling just so they could handle everything. So it's pretty flexible. Again, it's kind of the wild, wild west compared to probate.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Awesome, man. I mean, it's been super helpful, and I've got a bunch of your takeaways. Is there anything else that you think people should know, if they want to get into doing master title work?
Do a lot of research with your underwriter. That's like number one thing, because a lot of people don't understand how the title process works. And so naturally we want to get mad at the title officer, but in reality, they have to report to the underwriter, and it might be a different underwriter. So it might be like, Chicago Title, it might be First American, Capital, Old Republic. Westcore, it might be a different underwriter they have to report to, and every underwriter has a different requirement for clearing title. Like one might look at 50 years of deed history, one might look at 25 or 50. Sorry, like each one's going to be different. So you have to understand, how many hoops do I have to get through to make this look good?
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Awesome, man. Now, do you help other people with their deals too if they have like messy title deals?
Yeah. So if anyone has any messy title deals, they're more than welcome to reach me on my Facebook, Instagram. Most times I take the approach of, I'm going to give you enough rope to hang yourself and go learn it, because unlike normal wholesale deals, it's with messy title, you have to go and actively work the deals. And obviously, if someone's working a messy title deal, they're either going to dig in a little bit deeper and get the deal done, or they're just going to drop it. And that's one thing I really found is, with messy title work, there's not a huge amount of competition because a lot of investors are not willing to do the extra work.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if anybody's got a deal they're working on, they're more than welcome to reach out. If I'm not equipped to handle it, I'll refer them over to someone else like Logan Fulmer. He's my guy. And he's got attorneys on staff. If I don't know it, I'll find someone that has the answer for it.
Awesome. Yeah, no, Logan's the man. But, all right, and then what's your handle on social media? What's the best way we can find you on there?
Yeah, so Instagram, it's McKlane.Bobbitt. So McKlane. And then my Facebook, it's same, McKlane Bobbitt. And message me, Instagram, Facebook, either one, I'll respond to it. And if you got any deals in Northeast Texas, holler at me.
Awesome, man. Well, any final thoughts or anything you want to share?
Yeah, say if y'all haven't looked at it, look at Ky's event coming up in what, 30 days?
I think, yeah, a little less than that. Yeah, but 23 days. Yeah.
Yeah. I looked at the lineup. You got some great speakers coming up. You got Travis Wells, Logan speaking. It's a great lineup looking there. But otherwise, take action on it. If you really feel like you've got that extra juice to squeeze out of your deals, have that conversation with either me or any other people that are really into these messy title deals. Because I'll tell you, there's a lot of deals that get left behind because it might take that extra step. And obviously, if you're a new investor and you're trying to get that edge against your competition, that might be your saving grace.
Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on, man. We'll have to do this again, man. I got some great takeaways. So I think I might be hitting you up next time we get a messy title deal.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on here.
Hey, this is Ky Logue. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I truly appreciate you. If you want more of this information and you want to see these actually recorded live, go ahead, join our Facebook group. It's the Real Estate Wholesaling Syndicate. It's right on Facebook. Google it, you'll find it. Type it on Facebook, you'll find it. I look forward to seeing you guys in there. We give a ton of free information in there, a bunch of free trainings, free courses. You get all the scripts, contracts, everything you need, A to Z, absolutely free. And I look forward to seeing you on the group.